Let's get more on the passing of George Foreman, who has died at the age of 76. Delighted to say that Sky Sports boxing analyst Johnny Nelson joins us. Johnny, good morning to you. Thank you so much for speaking to us. As someone so steeped in the world of boxing, what did George Foreman mean to you?
George Foreman is part of our boxing history, no matter what you think of him. This young man, he'd been boxing 2 years and then he won an Olympic gold medal. This is how good he was. He was as strong as an ox. So his reign of terror until he met Ali was legendary. People thought, this guy is just big, he's a big lump. They didn't respect him because he didn't have the pedigree, but still he was so strong naturally. It was so instinctive. And then he lost to Jimmy Young, went on. I remember actually sparring with Axel Schultz in 1995 in his fight against George Foreman. Now, Axel Schultz, who I sparred with, was tough as old boots. And he got in with Foreman at 46, 45, 46. And Foreman absolutely pummeled him. And I thought, and it shows levels of natural, instinctive strength. So Foreman, you know, he actually carved himself out a career in and out of the ring. Obviously, when he left, he found God over the 10-year period when he walked away from our sport. And then the George Foreman grill. That made him more money out of the ring than it did in the ring. And I think, useless fact, I think he offered it to Hulk Hogan and he didn't pick the phone up. But anyway, George Foreman, he was the guy that actually, it made such a difference in and out of the ring. So for his passing, he will go down in history as one of the toughest, biggest bangers that our sport has ever created.
That's an excellent grill fact to get us going there, Johnny. Let's talk about the early stages of his career. You touched on it, becoming an Olympic champion as a teenager, but in the pro ranks, that victory over Joe Frazier, I guess, was what really made people sit up and take notice of George Foreman.
Remember, George Foreman was only 24 years old at that point. 24 years old, and he literally bounced Joe Frazier all over the place. Joe Frazier, look at what he did to Ali. Look at what he did to him. Joe Frazier was hell on feet. This guy was in your face, but George Foreman was not intimidated by anybody. And you know what? At the age of 75 plus, this guy, even in his older age, this guy didn't care. He had that aura about him. He was just a tough guy. And so when he got in there with Joe Frazier, Joe Frazier knew, wow, I've never, ever been hit by this. And I don't think, I'd probably measure him to Ernie Shavers, but I don't think we've ever seen anybody that tough. I mean, tough, I don't mean a tough puncher. I mean a tough guy like George Foreman. We've never seen anybody like that, and I don't think we ever will.
I think one of the things that really proves someone is a global sporting superstar is when what they do transcends their own sport. And even casual fans will know the rumble in the jungle. They'll know what rope-a-dope means. That fight between him and Muhammad Ali was just arguably one of the greatest boxing matches of all time.
Without a doubt, and unfortunately, frustratingly, I'm assuming for George Foreman, people always refer back to that fight because that fight was such a historic moment. The fight was something so special. And so George Foreman, he was putting it on Ali. But the thing is, that lack of experience against an experienced champion in Ali, that was the only thing that let him down. Because everybody thought Ali, that was it. He's going to get crushed, going to get ruined. And George Foreman, actually the loss, was probably the best thing for him because that was the beginning of his rebirth.
Yeah, a rebirth which, as you said, led to him finding God, to taking a step away, but coming back to beat Michael Moore and become a world champion. I think 45 years and 200 days it was that he became, at the time, the oldest world champion, which is quite an achievement. And actually, when you look at overall 81 professional fights, which is unheard of these days, you'd say.
Without a doubt, I think he only lost 5. I think he was stopped in 1, that was against Ali. But George Foreman, you've got to understand, to say, you look at the rule book, you think this guy, as an amateur, didn't have the pedigree to achieve what he achieved, turned professional. His style was so raw, so unorthodox. It was so matter-of-fact, but it was so effective. This guy was respected worldwide. And then he got in with a young man in Michael Moore, and Michael Moore was a bully. Michael Moore was a heavy-handed southpaw bully. And George Foreman took a shellacking and stuck it out. And then, when he took Michael Moore out, it was a simple 1-2, wiped him out, and Michael Moore has never gotten over that. How have I let this old man beat me? And for a heavyweight, For a heavyweight to that at that age, you've got to understand how much of a feat that is in boxing. You look at boxing today, you know, at heavyweight, these guys are young guns. And then Michael Moore was a young gun, a successful young gun coming through. But George Foreman, patience, timing and everything, that's what worked for him.
Just a final word then, Johnny. We had Frank Warren on Sky earlier this morning saying he is in that conversation about the greatest of all time. Is he in that discussion for you?
Without a doubt. No matter what, even in 10, 15, 50 years' time, he will be in our history chronicles, you know, of George Foreman, of what he achieved, the fights he was involved in, the people he took out. Because you look at the history of our sport, and that's what fighters today look at. They look at who beat who, how did he beat him. George Foreman's style, it was revolutionary. You just thought nobody fought like that, but it was so successful. So he probably got it all wrong, but did it all wrong, but got it all right.
Johnny, really appreciate you sharing your memories with us this morning. Thank you very much.